what's the root issue behind, I know autoimmunity can show up in different areas, but what is that root cause that we need to address with autoimmune conditions?
Well, I'll answer that. But can I say, Mindy, that, and I know you know this, that if you develop one autoimmune disease, the chances that you'll develop a second autoimmune disease is like 70%.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then
Yes.
the chances that you'll develop a third autoimmune disease is like 50%.
I think one of the things that unites so many of us that are in the functional health world is that people are sicker than ever. And they're not just coming in with one symptom, they're coming in with like 20 symptoms. And, I've been in practice 25 years. You've been in practice longer than that. How long you been in?
38 years. Yep.
38 years.
Yep.
So I want to start with, what have you seen in the condition of the human body in the last 38 years? What has changed?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's something that I talk about all the time, because I used to actually, my brother and I owned a Gold's Gym in our hometown for about 10 years. People familiar with that? It's a national chain, Gold's Gym, right? And we would have people that would come in that was about the time when women started to get more involved with weightlifting. And they would come in, and just as a simple example of how things have changed, it was easy if a woman came to us and they wanted to lose weight. This was back in the mid 80s. You would clean up their diet, you would put them on an exercise program, and then voila, you would have weight loss.
Yeah. You had to put some leg warmers on her too. You had to put some leg warmers on her and
right,
a headband.
The headband, yeah.
I grew up in the 80s.
The big hair.
That.
Yeah, the big hair was a must.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was predictable. And then something happened, and it was in the 90s. And it was more towards mid to late 90s, where you would have the same situations with minimal to no results. And I remember specifically actually talking to Dan Pompa at that time, saying something's different. Like, you can't, they're not losing weight the way that they used to, right? They got into this thing we know today as weight loss resistance. And it's really, this inability to lose weight is just this sign of something really bad happening inside. It's just not a nuisance. Like, oh, I can't lose weight. It's telling you something, that you've got deeper issues going on. And I equate it really to back then I was saying, I think we are seeing like this tsunami that is coming ashore. And we're just seeing the beginning waves of it. And as we've gotten into it more now, we're seeing more of what you're describing, where people are coming in with multiple issues, going on, foods, different environmental sensitivities, all of these issues that really were something that was more rare is becoming more and more common today. And I just think it's a reflection of really how sick we are, really down at that cell level.
Yeah.
It's happening.
I think for those of us that are in the functional health world, we see it so clearly. But when I stand in my functional health mind and I look at the what somebody's doing every single day, I feel like the human race hasn't really identified yet that there has been a change in stressors, that we are sicker than ever before. I feel like the common person isn't seeing that. So help us understand, how do we help people see that their toxic stress, physical, emotional, chemical, is way worse than even a decade ago? And what are those stressors?
Yeah, I would even take it a step further, Mindy, and say that even in the natural health world, what I did for a lot of years was I was always talking about getting to the cause as a chiropractor, right?
Yeah.
Not realizing that a lot of what I was doing, especially nutritionally, was just more of the same, treating symptoms. I was using supplements to do what the medical doctors were doing, but really not recognizing that, and I see this today with a lot of natural health doctors, they're still skirting around that whole thing. What can I take for this? What can I take for that? Instead of understanding what's causing that. And that's the big missing link. And,
Yeah.
that's our mission, right? Is we're
Right.
trying to get people to understand that unless you're dealing with real root causes,
Yes.
then at best, all you're doing is treating symptoms.
Yes.
And honestly, for my almost 4 decades of doing this, that is pretty much a dead end street. You can help
Amen.
people, you can help them feel a little bit better. And yeah, it's way better to use natural things versus pharmaceuticals most of the time, but it's still, you're still missing that big thing, which is
Yes.
the cause. And the cause today, you asked that question. I believe we're living in a time like no other. We're exposed to chemicals in a way that, like, I was
Yep.
just, I use this on my welcome call with my clients, where I talk about the environmental working group looked at American females, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they found in their beauty products alone, just in their beauty products, they're exposed on average to 168 different toxins,
Yep.
just in the beauty products. And you gals are like head to toe type stuff, right?
Yep.
Head
Yep.
to toe, day after day, week after week, month, year, it goes on. And that's just the beauty products.
Yes.
That's not the cleaning products, not the air you breathe, the water you drink, the food you eat, the medications you're taking, all the plastic chemicals, which are in a whole class by themselves in terms of how endemic they are in our society. But yeah, I mean, this is what we're talking about here, this onslaught, this time
Yes.
that we're living in like no other generation before us.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say we are living in the most toxic time in human history. And the sooner we identify that and try to minimize the toxins coming into our body, the better our body can heal. And what I love and what unites you and me and Pampa is that our training, our chiropractic training, really gave us a vision to be able to see that the body heals itself.
Yeah.
You are living in this perfect piece of machinery. You just have to remove the interferences.
Wow.
And your beauty products are interfering, EMFs are, I mean, there's so many interferences that are bringing down the body's ability to heal.
Yeah. And I love that, because when we talk about that God-given capacity towards health, right?
Yeah.
They call it, scientists call it homeostasis. It's the ace in the hole. Without it, we're doomed, right?
Yes.
But because you have this in you, I always use the example, Mindy, if I were to nick somebody with a knife, instantly their body starts the process of healing that cut. They go out in 100-degree temperature, they start to sweat. Freezing temperature, they start to shiver. The doctor can set the bone. It's the body that heals the bone, right?
Yes.
And that's the ace in the hole. And
Yes.
with that working with us, and people may be so sick that they don't recognize that
Yes.
their body is feverishly attempting to fix their problem. We need to do what you just said. We need to remove those roadblocks. We need to create an environment in the body that is supportive of healing, cellular healing. It's an anti-inflammatory environment, right? Where all the things we're doing in our lives as typical Americans, we're driving inflammation, we're driving cell damage. But there is that thing that's the opposite. You can create an environment that's supportive of healing. And because you have a body designed to heal, that's what you should expect.
Yes. Yes. But nobody's been taught this. I'm in the process of writing a fasting book for women. And first 2 chapters, the second chapter, I really was mapping out for women how when you're in the womb, there is a total trust that baby is going to grow and all the fingers are going to get put in the right place and the eyes and the head. The mom doesn't sit around and say, "Oh wait, hold on."
Right.
Yeah, I'm going to step out of this work meeting so I could go help my baby grow an arm. That doesn't happen.
Right.
But the minute we come out of the womb, distrust and fear starts. And in the womb, we're powerful, and out of the womb, we're not powerful.
Wow.
And so the conditioning starts on day 1 as we are taught, keep your baby inside. If your baby has a fever, you want to bring the fever down. Don't let your baby get too near people who have a cold. We get taught outside in health from day 1.
Yeah.
But we were created inside out.
Right. I am stealing that from you. That is really, that's powerful. I love that.
Yeah. So let's help people understand what one of the things I want to do with this conversation is, okay, if we know that our body is a self-healing piece of equipment here, what do we need to look at when we look at cholesterol, when we look at thyroid, when we look at autoimmune? I love how you started this off, that we often move from medication to supplements. We go from conventional medicine to alternative medicine, but we're still not getting to the root cause. So let's get to the root cause of some of these things that my audience might be dealing with and help them see a different perspective. And I'm going to start with cholesterol, since you said that was your favorite one.
Yeah, it is. It's the one thing that sets me off, I think, more than anything, because, our ancestors, if we really think about it, right, not that long ago even, they lived on farms and they ate all of the food that we've been told is taboo today. All of the food that's supposedly creating, weight issues, heart problems, high cholesterol, whatever it is. Well, they lived on butter, they lived on lard, they lived on red meats, they lived on all of these foods that we've been told are bad for us. Did they have heart disease? Well, it was so rare that myocardial infarction didn't even enter medical colleges in the United States till about 1910, 1912, right? Yep. And if we're looking at even diseases like cancer, because they're saying today that a high fat diet, it contributes to the development of cancer. Well, in 1900, 3 out of every 100 Americans could expect to develop cancer. It's like 49 out of 100 today. And yet we've cut fat consumption over the last 50 years, like 30%. But as a nation, we have more obesity, we have more heart disease, we have more cancer. It's not helping. In fact, I believe that it's hurting, because you have to make that distinction between bad fats and good fats, right? Man-made, tainted, prostituted fats that, when they get in our body, they do all the bad things. The hydrogenated oils, the trans fats, the vegetable oil, the canola oil, right? The corn oil, these things are driving the bad things, the cell inflammation and the damage. And they're causing these things that we're so worried about. But on the other side of the coin, when our ancestors ate foods that were natural, these healthier fats, they not only were not harming themselves, they were preventing disease. And that's what we're trying to tell people. Look at our brain, 70% fat, 25% of all the cholesterol in our body is stored in our brain, in our little brain, right? 2% of our body weight, that's where 25% of the cholesterol, there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Our nerve coverings, 80% fat. Our cell membrane that's damaged, it's called a bilipid layer. It's made of 2 layers of fat. You can't manufacture and utilize vitamin D. There's so many people listening that are low in vitamin D without adequate levels of healthy fat. Hormones are made from fat. Yep. So this idea that cholesterol is the boogeyman, when I graduated, Mindy, can you believe that in 1984, when I graduated, anything under 300 cholesterol level was considered to be good to go. Anything under 300. Then they lowered it to 250. And in the process, they put how many people on cholesterol lowering medications. And then they decided, well, it needs to be down to 200. And they put millions of more people on cholesterol lowering medications. And now there's a lot of doctors that are trying to drive it down to 150. And all of that effort with all of these medications, what difference has it made in heart attacks and strokes? Zero. It's made no difference whatsoever. But there's over 900 studies showing the damaging effects of these statin drugs in our bodies, right? And people are, they're not even, I think a lot of times we get, like you're talking about, Mindy, we get so conditioned that they're not even thinking, why is it that I have to go in and get a blood test every 3 months when I'm on these statin drugs? Because they're so dangerous.
Yes.
They literally go into the liver and shut off the liver's ability to manufacture cholesterol. Well, that is potentially damaging to the liver. So they have to go back and check their liver enzymes to make sure that does that even sound healthy to anybody?
Yeah,
right. We've just gotten so far off track with this whole cholesterol thing.
Yeah. So when let's say I go into my trusted medical doctor, I love him or her, I feel like they have my best interest in mind. They run my annual blood test. They see that my total cholesterol is high. They prescribe me a statin. What am I to do at that moment? Because I trust my medical doctor. Are there questions I can ask? Are there other labs I can run? How do I open that conversation up so that I can have my doctor working with me? Or am I living in a world of Pollyanna world where I want all doctors to work together? How do we unite this?
Yeah, that not the question of the ages? I will say this though, that in my time I have seen a distinct shift.
Yeah.
And there's more medical doctors that are open to this idea that there are some natural things that can be investigated first. I have seen that. But by and large, patients they're going to be up against it because the doctor's been taught one thing. And then, there are people like us telling them another thing.
Yeah.
And so what I do is I recommend in that particular case, I recommend a book, for instance, by Dr. Stephen Sinatra called The Great Cholesterol Myth. And this is a heart surgeon, right?
Yeah.
So they're coming from that perspective so that you can use that type of information as ammunition, if you will. I would just, if it was me, I would be wanting to go in and I would want the proof. And I'm going to be like, Doc, can you show me any study that's not from a pharmaceutical company that's selling the drug? Show me any study that supports the idea that somebody who hasn't had a previous heart attack, for instance, right, is going to benefit longevity wise from taking this statin. And then there's all kind of studies out there that will show you the damaging effects of taking this, what they would call the side effects. I went to school, I learned about the law of cause and effect. It wasn't cause, effect, and side effect. That's just a less serious sounding way of understanding what happens when you take a known toxin into your body every day for the rest of your life.
Yes.
Right? There's going to potentially be a price to pay for that, the side effect, or it's really the effect of taking that toxin in.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's such a dilemma. I'm sure you see it all the time.
Oh yeah.
And people are so frustrated. They get so afraid and naturally understanding. They don't want to lose their doctor. Like you said, they like their doctor, but a lot of these people they get offended. They get offended when you are going to challenge. It's your body though, right? It's our body. We have to have the right to go into that with this notion that, look, this is my health and I need to do what's right for me.
Right.
And look at both sides of that coin.
And just so people are up to speed on science, like studies themselves, I don't know if we have a percentage, but I want to make sure that people don't miss that pharmaceutical companies back studies.
Yeah.
And do you know what the percentage of studies are? Or
I don't. I know it's extremely high, that most of the studies that are out there are funded by the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah. I remember years ago, like 25 years ago, I was living in LA and the LA Times came out with a 4-page article, like no ads, just purely an article about the pressure that the researchers feel when they get this funding from pharmaceuticals. They feel pressure to have to pass the drug because the whole study was funded by big pharma. Yeah. And I remember this was 25 years ago. I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to help people see what is behind some of this research. And here we are 25 years later. And that piece of science being backed by big pharma and the pressure on the researchers to show a specific thing, it just doesn't get talked about enough.
It really doesn't get talked about. And you just, all a person really needs to do is maybe just even for a day, pay attention to the amount of commercials that are on television that have to do with medications, right? And we are bombarded. That's my point. We're bombarded by this industry that is super powerful. And, they hold a lot of sway when it comes to the laws that are written. And I think it's just borne out with the fact that if anyone can look and say that what we are doing is working, then I'll shut up.
Yes.
Then I'll shut up. But we are the sickest nation that's ever existed. And I heard this, and I don't know exactly if it's 100% accurate. People can check this out, but I know it's close to this. And that is that the United States comprises about 4.7% of the world's population. We consume over 50% of all the world's medications.
I've heard that. Yes.
Think
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
Like, and where are we? Where do we rank health-wise for anyone listening? You would think that with our technology, right, with the great doctors we have, and we do have great doctors, and with the great nurses that we have, and we have great nurses, you would think that we would be up near the top. Well, we're not. When it comes to life expectancy, even we're in the middle of the pack.
Yeah.
When it comes to the amount of diseases per capita, we're the worst. We have more diseases per capita than any other nation in the world. And it's not getting better, it's getting worse, because what we're doing is not working. The approach that we have, this idea, like you're saying, that it's going to be outside in. We're going to get something, whenever something bad happens to us, we're going to find some pill, powder, potion, and lotion that we're going to stick in us or on us that somehow is going to address the reason why we're sick.
Yes.
You know, why can't Mary lose weight? Why is her hair falling out? Why does she have joint problems, skin problems, gut problems? If you're not asking that question, if the doctor's not asking that question, why? And let me tell your listeners, and they know this already, there has never been a headache caused because you lacked aspirin. There's never been a case of high cholesterol because you didn't have enough statin drugs in your body. There's a time and a place. Yep. I'm not saying that people's lives have not been saved because of medications, but how many people are dead because of medication? How much health is being destroyed because we're not looking at the real underlying issues, the causes of why they're sick? Yeah. And it never boils down to a lack of medication.
No. And I want to point out, well said, and I want to point out that emergency medicine in our country is amazing. We're talking about chronic disease. So if it's helpful for you guys as you're listening to this, just to separate those two out. If I'm in a car accident, take me to the ER. That's where I should be. But if I have a chronic condition and I get put on a medication, I didn't solve the problem. The doctor didn't solve the problem.